Hello and welcome back to Summers TV. And today we are continuing with our conversation we started off before. In studio I had Mr. JMV, who is a refugee from Rwanda. So we're continuing with the conversation, but today in studio we brought Estell, who happens to be the sister to JMV. So Estell, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I'm sure you probably watched my conversation I had with your brother JMV, and what an experience.
Yeah, I did watch it. It's quite tragic.
Yeah. Anyway, I do believe you already know some of those stories, but JMV is your brother. But can you briefly introduce yourself? I know you are JMV's brother, yeah, JMV's sister. Okay, but what more do you have? Who is Estell?
My name is Estell, as you have already said. I am a gospel artist, very much known in a song called Raha Yangu or Natafuta Ruganzuri. If you want to go check on my channel. Originally from Rwanda. I've been in Australia for 17 years.
Oh, 17 years.
Yeah.
That's quite, you're pretty much an Aussie now. That's a long time.
I will.
Yeah, so now we just want to go straight into a conversation, and like I said, we are mainly picking up from what JMV said, and we pick up the story from there. And we spoke a little bit about the travel that your family did from Rwanda through the bushes to Burundi, and from Burundi all the way to Tanzania to the refugee camp. So JMV explained a little bit about that. So do you remember any of the details, like any of that travel in the bushes and all that?
Well, most of what he said, I wouldn't say that I remember any of it, because I was really young at the time when they were traveling. I started kind of like recognizing things or knowing things when my parents were like in this refugee camp called Munagano, but I don't remember much in that refugee camp. The main place that I remember more, it's a Rukole camp, which was located in Tanzania, or in Ngara, Kagera, because that's where I basically grew up.
That's a lot of names there. You mentioned two refugee camps. The first one, Ruganda. What did you say? What is it called? Munagano. That in Burundi or in Rwanda?
It was in Burundi, that one.
Okay, so that must have been the one JMV said we get into. Then you traveled to Tanzania. Okay, I get it. So now let's pick it up from the refugee camp in Tanzania. So how was life there?
Well, life in Tanzania was, growing up, it was good. The only thing I'd say was a bit challenging. It was just the safety part of it. But when it comes to other things like having food, me knowing the only place that I knew, I'd say that life was a bit better than probably what other people were experiencing or what JMV has said in his interview. So yeah, just the safety, I'd say, but other things were okay.
So before we get into the safety aspect of your stay in there, how was, like, as a child, how was things like food, things like schooling, things like health? Did you have a hospital? How was those kind of day-to-day things in there?
Well, when I first arrived in the refugee camp in Rukole, I went there with my grandma, and she came to pick me up from the place where we're living in Munagano, and then she took me to Rukole where she was living. So when I went there, I wasn't well. I was sick because of lack of nutrition. So at the time, on food wise, they had this organization that was giving children who had lack of nutrition, like they were giving us milk. Every morning, grandma would take me to drink milk at a hospital, which was in the refugee camp. But it was like a small organization which was inside of a fenced hospital that people used to go to whenever they're sick. So every morning we'll go and they get milk, and then when you get better, when they start seeing changes on your body, because my body was quite I was skinny everywhere else, but my tummy was like big and my hair color had changed to brown, like very unhealthy looking child I was. So when the way they determined that you're looking better now, they would discharge you from getting the milk. It's when they see your hair starting to change into like darker color and your tummy is going down a little bit, and now you're like getting to a level whereby they will start giving us this flour. You would make uji. If anyone knows what uji is, it's like a African porridge. They will then start giving the children who are getting better that every month, not every day. So every month your parents will go and they pick up the flour for uji, and then they will make you uji every morning instead of getting milk.
So before you said you went there because you're lacking nutrition.
Yeah.
So what kind of food were you having before you get to that level? What kind of food?
Well, because we were in Munagano refugee camp, and my parents were already struggling to look after us because we were like 5 children, and in Munagano, like a GMV said, we were living in a place where we're not in a refugee camp. So my parents had to go and work in people's farm to be able to get food for just one day. So during that time, the food was not enough. And coming from Rwanda, where we had all our cattle, we had our own farm, everything was good. I was the one, because I was like the youngest, I was the one who was more trended due to lack of nutrition, being the youngest and not having enough food. And my mom got sick after she had twins, and no one was basically paying attention to me because I was just there. And my dad was always busy trying to work and look after the kids because mom was sick. It was, the food was a problem. We didn't have enough food.
Wow. Then you moved in and you went within the refugee camp. Then how were you getting normal food? Like you mentioned that in this part of time where you were getting less nutrition was at the time when you were not yet into the refugee camp.
Correct.
You didn't have supplies over there. But when you eventually you got entered into the refugee camp, did you now had enough nutrition within?
In the refugee camp, yes, we did, because the UN was there, which was giving food every fortnight. So grandma would go and get food from UN. They used to bring food in the refugee camp. They would be like maize meal, and they would bring us beans. Sometimes they would change and bring rice. So they will bring different things, but mainly maize meal, beans, and the peas, like a dry peas. So we had only those type of food. That's what we were eating in the refugee camp in Rukole with grandma. But on top of that, because that wasn't enough to help kids like us who had been through lack of nutrition for a long time, they had to have a different organization on the side to try and get us better so that whatever food they were giving us would work.
That's when that other organization comes in.
Yeah. It was only for kids, not for for kids who are suffering from lack of nutrition. You know, some kids, even if they eat sasa, even if they eat like when they are young, without milk or more nutritious things, they still don't gain, you know?
That's true. I understand, because kids growing up, even when you look at the circumstances like in Africa, kids are very active. They spend much of the day running around and whatever, so they actually need a lot more nutrition for their bodies to cope with that much energy that they'll be using. So now we talked about the food kind of things, and you mentioned that the safe aspect wasn't quite good. How safe were you?
Well, in the refugee camp, when I first arrived there, because I was young, to me it was okay. But growing up, and when I started noticing that it wasn't safe anymore when I turned like 10. Because when I went to the refugee camp, I was like 7, around 6 or 7, because I started year 1 there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, you're very young. Yeah.
I was really young. So around that time, I really didn't care about anything. Even my health, I didn't know much. Grandma was the one taking care of that. So growing up and when my parents moved to the refugee camp with us, it was around the time when I started noticing how unsafe it was. I remember when my parents came to the refugee camp, my dad was lucky to get a job in the refugee camp where she was helping in school. Where he was helping in school, in Kindi.
Okay.
So when he was working he was working in a primary school. Yeah, in a primary school.
Yeah.
So when he was working there as a teacher, because during the night they used to have men staying awake to look after the streets, because in the night they would be. I didn't understand why men had to stay awake. Again, I got to understand as I grew up, but they would go and knock a door knocking every night to make sure that all men on the streets are awake during the night. But when you're a teacher or you have some sort of jobs you're doing, they will let you sleep so that you'll be able to wake up and look after your job. So my dad was not under the obligation of staying awake during the night. So our neighbors used to get jealous. They'll be like, why are you sleeping while we stay awake? So I remember one night I went to visit them, because like I said, I was living with the grandma in because there were 2 different places, 2 different areas. There was the Rwanda camp and the Rumasi camp. So when my parents came, they arrived in the Rumasi camp, which was on the other side of the camp. It was like one camp but divided in 2.
Oh, so this was one camp.
Yeah.
Then the 2 areas you mentioned were different sections of the same camp.
Of the same camp.
Oh, okay. So you would visit from the other camp where you're living with grandma to the other section where your mom, dad, and the other siblings were.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
So when I went to visit them, I remember one night, these men came and they were surrounded my parents' house, and they knocked on the door. My dad came out and they wanted to take him, but luckily my mom told him not to go, because apparently when they come and pick up people, they will never come back.
So where were these men?
They said they were neighbors. I didn't know, because like I said, I was young. I just remembered that occasion during the night when all men were staying awake and my dad was sleeping. They were quite jealous. So I thought they were neighbors. I don't know who those people were. But then as I grew up, that's when I got to realize that it wasn't very safe, and the people who were coming door knocking, they were not very nice people, and they were not people in the refugee camp. Yeah.
So these people that would come in, like, okay, let's talk about the ones that came to pick up your dad, and your dad did not go. So were those ones part of the men within the camp, or they were actual outsiders?
I think they were, because if they were our neighbors, exactly how like I heard of it, I don't think they would get away with it.
Oh, I get it.
Because my dad reported it and nothing happened, because they couldn't find it, or they couldn't identify who those people were.
Oh, meaning you said they most likely were from outside the camp.
From outside the camp, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, let's explore a little bit further on that safe aspect. Apart from the incident where your dad came, they wanted to pick your dad up, were there other unsafe incidents that were happening within the camp?
Well, let's just start actually from growing up, and then my parents came to the camp, like I said. And when they were living in Rumasi, I wasn't living there. That's only one incident I remember. So moving to Rukole camp, where grandma used to live, I was pretty safe at grandma's house. But when I got to my dad's house, it wasn't safe because it was a target. Because the grandma was like an old lady, and they didn't really want anything from her. Like I say, my dad was a teacher, and most of these people, when they come to your house, they will either be coming to look for money or to take your life. So eventually my parents did move from Rumasi camp because it wasn't safe anymore. Like, it was no longer safe for them to stay there. So when they moved to Rukore camp, it was a little bit more safer, but then it got bad later on. Like, the whole refugee camp, it wasn't safe because every night there would be gunshots. You would wake up, you find, oh, such and such family, they lost someone from the same people coming in the refugee camp. So I remember there was a time where just one street away from our house, there was a time where we heard a gunshot. It was around 8 p.m. And then when we heard the gunshots, because every time the gunshot happened in the refugee camp, there will be a silence. No one will be talking after that. Even people who are walking around, they will not continue walking. They will then go into whatever house they're close by and hide in there. So there was a silence, and then after that silence, I heard a woman scream. And then she screamed only once. And then after that, we heard another gunshot. And then a silence happened again. The woman was not screaming anymore. Then a few minutes later, we heard footsteps from the other side of the street, like I said. And then we heard another 5 straight gunshots. And there was about 10 minutes of silence again. And then after 10 minutes, we heard a woman screaming and crying. And she was saying that they killed him. And when we went to check, her husband was killed. And they shot him 5 times and cut his neck off.
Wow. So these are the same people that you mentioned earlier on. They came over to your house to ask your dad if he can come out and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's really. So when this thing was happening, if I may ask, was the refugee camp secured? Were this like armies securing the camp?
Well, during the staying in there, we had one police station in the Rukole refugee camp, and there was another police station in Rumasi. So Rumasi was a little bit further because it was like a 1.5 hour walk from there. So in Rukole refugee camp, we were living really close to where the police station was. In fact, the person who was killed, they were living even closer to the police station. So whenever there's a gunshot, police will not come out for their safety. Because when these people come, like when I go back to a story, like I remember there were times they came targeting my parents' house, which I was also living in. They came, and we had another neighbor who had some issues with people on the street because he had raped one of my friends. So when they came, I could hear them in our backyard saying that in such and such a family, when you get there, make sure you kill even a newborn baby. Don't leave anyone in the house. And they were counting in our house, they were to kill my dad, and they were saying, just leave the children, and they kill all the parents. So they came and they went to this other man who was living just a few houses away from our house. They kicked into the house and they found there was nobody there, and they came to the other man where they said they should kill even an infant if there is any. They kicked into his house, he wasn't there, and then they walked up, because there was, they will come as a team and there will be people surrounding the whole area, and there will be another group breaking into the house. So the group that was surrounded our house in the backyard, we could hear them talk on the radio stations. They had like radio stations where they would be talking to each other, communicating.
Those
communication radios. Yes. So when they were talking, we could hear them communicating. And when they came to our house, the guy came and he was standing in front of our door about to kick into the house. I remember I was lying underneath my parents' bed, and my other siblings were lying underneath different beds, under beds in the house. And then when they kicked the door, then the police came. Because there were gunshots during the time when they were breaking into different houses.
Yeah.
So the police heard the gunshots, and like I said, the police will not come when there's a gunshot. They will only come if there's like a few minutes with no gunshot.
Then they'll come.
Then they will come. So then the police came, and when the
police came, but that means they heard the gunshots.
Yeah.
But then there was a moment of silence without gunshots. Then that's why the police came.
That's why the police came, and our house was the last one on their list. So when they kicked the door to enter in our house, the police then came.
Wow.
When they heard the police, I heard them saying, "Oh, the police are coming," and they all ran.
Wow.
They didn't manage to come in the house. We were all literally scared, just waiting, whatever that's going to happen. But around that time, my mom and dad were not in the house.
Oh, you're only children in there?
We were only children in there. My mom was at grandma's house. She was hiding at grandma's house, which were on the same street. And then my dad had gone to hide in the toilet.
Were they warned prior to them?
Yeah, there was a guy who used to live next to us, and he used to go in the bush to for fishing, because the rivers were quite far, and it was said that those people were breaking into the house. They had camps somewhere, and they were believed to be former soldiers from Rwanda. So they were basically Hutus who were coming in the refugee camp and stealing, going back in their camp.
In the bushes? In
the bushes, yeah. So that friend of my dad, he overheard them say which houses they are coming for that night. And then he came before them, days before them. And he warned my dad. He told him that your house and such house and such house, they are coming for you guys on this night.
Wow.
So that's why they couldn't find anyone that night, because they already been warned.
So all those doors they kicked, the ones you're mentioning, there wasn't anyone, because that guy had warned them.
Yeah.
Wow, bless him.
And unfortunately, when he went back to get fish, because like I said, the rivers were quite far away. They will go and spend like a week or even 2 weeks there, and they come back with fish and the bush meat. So when he went back for fishing, they suspected that he's the one who warned everyone, because they're like, how can we go and there's no one there? They killed him.
Oh, they killed him?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
It was quite tragic because his body was not even buried.
What happened to his body?
According to his friends who used to go get fish as well, they said they killed him and put him in a tree as an example if anyone opens their mouth.
Wow. I can imagine how evil some humans can be to go to that level. And I'm just assuming that he was probably a family man with children, maybe, and a wife. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But how could humans be so cruel to each other? It's amazing, the stories that comes out of the genocide. So, but to say it, he probably saved your lives.
Not probably, he actually saved our lives. Because if he had not told us, if he had not told the other family, they would have demolished the whole, like all the families. It was going to be, yeah.
Yeah, these stories. Do you ever know? Do you know like his family? Do you remember any contacts? Because I understand the refugee camp doesn't exist anymore. Because I believe some of those people are the people that we hear a lot of their stories who helped to save a lot of other families. Do you know any contacts at all with his family?
With his family? No, like we've been looking for them. Even if they're anywhere watching this video, yeah, please do find whoever that might know us. Contact me, Estell Nadine, on Facebook. We're looking for their number. His wife, we can't find the numbers. We can't find the numbers of his children because after the father passed away, their mom decided to leave the refugee camp because she thought that now she's the next target. Since they've just killed her husband, so they moved back to Rwanda, where they came from. So since then, we haven't been in contact with them, and we stayed in the refugee camp. So we actually left the refugee camp 2 weeks before it was shut down.
Oh,
yeah.
2 weeks before the camp was shut down. That's when you guys left.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that was just about the time. So how many years did you stay in the refugee camp?
Like I said, when I got there, I think I was around 6. When we left there, I was 14.
So
turning 15, yeah.
That's about 8 years?
Yeah, around 8 years.
So in other words, you pretty much spent your childhood within the refugee camp.
Correct, yeah. That's the only place I would say that I know.
And if I get things right, you say the refugee camp closed just a week or so after?
Yeah.
So is there any now, have you ever had any contact? Is there anything within the camp now that you can go back and you can revisit your childhood and look where you grew up? Is there anything that's still available there for people like you to get a reference of your childhood?
No, I hear that the refugee camp, it's actually closed, and it's now bush, like there's nothing there.
There's nothing.
Yeah, I heard that even going there at the moment, it may not be very safe to drive there, but yeah, it's I missed that place, even though it was like that, because that's my childhood place, you know.
Yeah, I'm asking because I know, me too, I've got my childhood places where I grew up, where I was born, in Zimbabwe, and each time I visit Zimbabwe, I connect. When I go back to the villages, and I'm like, man, this is where I grew up, this is the river I used to fetch water, this is the fields we used to farm with our cattle and things like that. There's a connection. That's why I'm asking, like, I wish there were some kind of buildings, memorials, whatever things that were put in place, maybe for people like you to have a bit of a reference. If I may ask, do you know the numbers? How many were you in the refugee camp, roughly?
I wouldn't know. Like, I didn't follow up with things like that. Like, being young, and when I came, I was like in year 5 primary.
Wow.
So I wasn't really following up how many people were in the refugee camp. But as far as I remember, when I got there were two different sections of the refugee camp. There was Rumasi and the Rukore. So in the Rukore camp, we had one section where there was a Rwandan, mainly Rwandan people, and then we had another section where there was a Burundian section. So in the Burundian section, there was a time where the Rwandan section got closed and all Rwandans had to go back in their country. So it was just, it was really confusing. So I don't really, I wouldn't say I remember much.
Okay. What I was looking was kind of like an estimate. For example, let's say there were around maybe 100 people, or maybe there were thousands. Would you say were there in thousands in your numbers over there? With just a small place? Like,
no, I'd say it was in thousands.
In thousands?
Yeah.
Wow. And all those thousands of people were had their own. I'm just curious to understand the living conditions. Did you build structures that you would live, because you stayed 8 years of living there? What kind of structures were you living in?
When we arrived there, at the first, I would say when my parents arrived there, because when I went there, my grandma was already there living in a small tent. So when my parents came, when you first arrive in the refugee camp, they will give you this tent, and you would make a tent and live in that with all your children. There's no room, nothing.
It will be a one-room tent.
It will be like a one-room tent. So then the longer we spent there, then my dad started to make the dusty bricks, like a big bricks out of dust.
Yes.
And then he built a 3-bedroom house.
Out of that.
Wow. Then using that tent to put on top.
As the roof.
So he put that tent on top as the roof. So sometime when it rains, we would actually get the rain come inside the house. So we used to have containers. You make sure you put a container on top of your bed so it doesn't get wet when it rains.
Wow. So but I'm just imagining, because you from what you're saying, this was your childhood.
Yeah.
You had known anything better?
No.
Yeah, because you migrated from Rwanda when you were really young. So in that circumstance, you'll probably be, I would adjust. Whenever water comes, I dry it up and you move on. But now that you're here and you've lived, what does that make you feel, like thinking about those lifestyles that you've lived?
Well, I'd say now from that lifestyle that I was in, and now that I'm here, I've seen I've seen better now. I would say that lifestyle back then, it was not a lifestyle.
I can imagine,
I don't think I would be able to even manage. I even pity people who are still living in such a condition, because it wasn't easy. Like when it's raining and you're cooking, and it starts raining, you'd have to stop cooking because there's water coming in, and now you need to deal with the water before you can deal with anything else. So if it decides to rain all night, sometimes we would have to stop cooking and stay awake because you can't sleep on the bed.
It's raining, it's wet.
That is wet. So sometimes we will all have to squeeze ourselves in a small room where the rain is not coming. But when my father got his job back on the other side of the refugee camp, because when we moved back and he finished building the house, he got his job again, because they had to do a transfer and there was a period of time where he had to wait. He managed to buy another thing to put on top of the house, so that it's not
Like a makeshift roof of some sort.
Yeah.
To make the roof a bit
To
stronger.
make the roof a bit stronger.
Okay.
So from there, I'd say life was much better. We weren't experiencing any more of that. But obviously, not everyone were living in the same condition. Some people were quite poor, like widows or single moms. Even there were orphans who managed to escape the war and all their families were killed. They would be living in the houses like 15-year-olds. They would have to live in the little houses, like little tents built of grass, because they couldn't manage to build the house by themselves, or they couldn't afford to get any help to build those houses. So in the refugee camp, don't think that they will build a house for you. No, they will tell you, okay, this is your area. You can live there. They'll give you a land, an empty land.
Wow. And it's your initiative.
Yeah.
To see what you can do with that land.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's talk about now you're in Australia. So how is that process? How did that work out for you to be here?
I remember around the time when we actually came, it was around the time when they were giving orphans visas to come to Australia. So one of my cousin, like my brother mentioned, her father was killed, and she was in the care of my grandma. And obviously my dad as well. So her being an orphan, I would say it helped us to get a visa to come here, because she was part of that organizations. Like every 2 weeks we used to go and pick up some firewood for her, and they were more supported. Orphans and widows and the single moms were more supported in the refugee camp, and a lot of those people in such vulnerable situations were taken out of the refugee camp for better life. So our cousin, she was part of that group. That's how she got the visa, and she was with grandma and she was young. So they said, okay, we'll take all of you so that you look after her. And then when grandma gets old, you also look after her.
That's when you came together.
That's how we came together as a family, yeah.
So there was a criteria that they were using to decide who gets the visa first.
Yeah.
So it wasn't you would go on a waiting list, if I got that right?
Yeah.
Then do you remember like how long you were on the waiting list, or did they tell you like you're now you're almost there, keep waiting, or you're just waiting in darkness?
No, you would be waiting in darkness, because sometimes you wouldn't even know when they're going to come and call you to come and get questioned, because they used to do interviews, like a random interview. They would come and be like, oh, today we're requesting this name, can you find them? So they had people who would go and look on the streets, because we had house numbers. So they will come on the streets and look for this person called such and such. So there was no such a period of time you'll be given. We didn't even know which country we were going to. To start with, they will interview you, and after doing the interviews, they would then say, oh, you passed your interview. I remember the time before we came, it was like a miracle, because one of my nephew, who unfortunately passed away in 2012 through drowning, he got hit by someone.
That was in the camp?
Yeah, that was in the camp. And then around the time when he got hit, that was around the time they did a random call for an interview for my family. So when this person came looking for my dad, my nephew was taken at the hospital, bleeding excessively, because they hit him in the head. So I remember the immigration agency came, and they went to the hospital to see my dad, because they had to come out to see him on their own, because they say, oh, we can't find this man. They say he's in the hospital with the son. So they came to the hospital. And then they came to school. I was in class. I saw someone in the office. Then my teacher was called to the office, and they came and told me, oh, you're needed. So I left. I didn't know where I was going. They took us to the immigration office where the interview were carried out. And then they started, my dad was at the hospital around that time, so they went to get him from the hospital, and the immigration agency were like, no, we're gonna wait for him to finish, because they had to do stitches, and he was prioritized at the hospital. He was taken, we then went to the interview room, and he had stitches and everything, and the blood all over him.
Wow.
And I had my books, because I was coming straight from the school. So from there, there was a group of people who were meant to leave the refugee camp in that same week.
Okay.
And we were not part of that group. No.
Wow.
We were having a routine interview type of thing. So from there, the immigration made a quick decision. They're like, no, these people can't stay here. It's no longer safe for them.
Oh.
So they then put us together with the same group that was leaving. And when we actually left in that same week, 2 weeks after that, the refugee camp was shut down. There was no more people leaving the refugee camp.
Wow. I think yours is a miracle.
It was such a miracle the way we left there. And we were transferred into another refugee camp again, which was like more like a transit.
Okay.
Yeah, we stayed there for like 5 months.
In the transit refugee
In the
camp.
transit refugee camp, yeah.
Okay.
So there was more process around there, because they knew that the refugee camp was going to be shutting down.
Yeah.
So we stayed there for 5 months. We did our checkup. After the checkup, they then announced to us that, Australia accepted you guys.
So all this time, you did not know where you're going, which country?
No.
Wow.
It was a surprise to us. So when Australia accepted us, we were like, wow. We were really happy. They used to show us videos about Australia, how Australians live.
Oh. Okay. So this refugee camp you are in now, the transit one, you're telling me they were showing you videos. I'm assuming that life was better in this refugee camp.
Life was okay, I would say, because refugee camp is a refugee camp. You don't have a farm. You don't have anything in that refugee camp. Your life is basically being controlled. You're not allowed to leave a refugee camp. You have to stay inside that place. If you try to leave, you'd get killed.
Oh. Were these still the conditions in the transit refugee camp as well? Wow.
And that refugee camp was more protected than the other one, though, because the other one, we had gunshots. Parents used to stay awake during the night. But in this one, all men would sleep, because we had soldiers, like a Tanzanian army was surrounded with at the refugee camp. So you were not allowed to leave, and no random people were allowed to enter.
Wow.
If you get what I mean. So it was much more safer than the other one. But they used to bring us food. Like the same thing, beans, dry peas, maize meal. That was our food in both refugee camps. So you would think for 8 years, those are the same things we'll be eating.
Wow. Now, you have there. I want to hear a little bit of a transition now. You are in Australia. You have traveled to Australia. Okay. The differences. Tell me, what did you see when you arrived in Australia from a refugee camp?
When I first arrived in Australia, the place was just so beautiful. I felt like we were moving to heaven or something.
Wow. Because within the years that you were in, let's say those 8 years, had you had the chance to leave the camp for a visit elsewhere, like to you're in Tanzania, so to any of the Tanzanian cities? Had you ever had the opportunity to leave the camp at all?
The only time I left the camp, I would be going in the bush to look for firewood.
So from the camp, you got on a flight?
Not on the flight.
Okay.
When you're looking for firewood, you leave the camp, go around the area where the camp was looking for firewood. I never seen any place better than what I saw here in Australia. So the life and the condition, the living condition, it was pretty similar to the one in the recorded refugee camp.
Wow.
So in the house, we didn't have tiles. It would be dusty floor.
Did you have electricity?
Electricity? No. There was no electricity.
In both camps?
No, there was no electricity. We used to use the little, what do they call it? The little candle. We'll put petrol in a small jar, and then we'll put a cloth.
Oh, we used to use paraffin. I don't know if you know the liquid called paraffin. That's what we normally used to. The same thing with a cloth on it.
I think that's what they used. It smelled like a petrol to me.
Okay,
so I thought it was the petrol they pour in there. Those are our lights during the night. But the hospital had lights though. But there will be time where the lights will be turned on because they had a generator, and that generator would at some point be turned off. Only the operation rooms will be the ones with electricity at all times, and intensive care area because they had oxygens and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But other rooms where inpatients will be, they would turn all the lights off. And everything, during the night. So there was no electricity in the refugee camp, no.
Wow.
That's why it was easier for the robbers to come through. It will be pitch dark during the night.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, from the transit camp, you are to Australia. From the transit camp to the plane. From the plane, you are landing in Australia. How was the journey?
Yeah, the journey was it was interesting. The plane was scary. Being the first time in the airplane and occasionally getting into cars, super excited about stepping inside a car. The plane was another level.
Wow.
When the plane left, because the little plane we left in was like them little what do you call them?
I know the ones you're saying. I think, I think when my first travel on plane as well, I used those tiny ones from my city Harare to Joburg. You could count the number of people in there. I remember those tiny ones.
That's right. So it was quite scary because there were times where it will go up and then it's going down. You feel like you're literally dying or something. Yeah. So that experience was quite scary. But because we passed through Kenya and we stayed in Kenya overnight. So they gave us, they told us to go shower. And all the refugees, they called us. We were chucked into same shower, all the ladies. And all men were chucked into the same room for shower. And then after that, they gave us this weird uniform.
Oh, okay.
We had to wear a uniform so they can identify us. Because we all have been in a place, in Kenya already was more like we are arrived in a Western country. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I can imagine. You had not moved from the bush, the refugee camp, so this was pretty much different.
It was really scary. I mean, really beautiful, I'd say. So, like, walking around and you're seeing all these lights and the floor, you can see yourself in the tiles. It was so beautiful. We didn't even care. We just went in the shower and they put on our beautiful uniform. And then we walked in line. And they put us into this place where we were sitting, waiting for our next flight to come.
Were you all coming to Australia?
we were all coming to Australia, but in
Okay.
different states.
Oh, okay.
So we came in Perth, so our flight was different to the one that was going to Sydney and Brisbane.
So do you know how many you were in that the group that
We
traveled together?
we were like a group of 40 people.
Mm.
We were quite a lot around the time. We got our visas in a quite big number.
So so do you used to have contact with any of those people that moved to other states?
Not all of them. I used to, but not anymore.
Oh yeah, no, life
Yeah.
happens and people
Life
grow
happened.
up. You're very young when you came here, so I
Yeah.
understand. So now you are in Australia. Did you go to school here? Or the transition now? I'm imagine you're coming from where you told me. Now you're in Australia. There's schools, there's buses, there's trains, there's all those things. How do you navigate all that? You have to communicate with all these people that you don't know, you've never met. Yeah.
Yeah, when I got here, to be honest, it was a bit hard because I couldn't speak English. None
You
of
couldn't
us
speak English.
No, none of us could speak English because we were coming from a refugee camp where the education was pretty much in French and the Kirundi. That was the system they used to teach us in. So there was I had zero English when we got here. Even my parents could not speak English.
How did you manage to communicate then?
Well, when I got here, I was actually lucky enough to get a school. I was enrolled in a school, and then I studied English for like a year and a half, and then I started year 11 and 12.
Wow.
So it was pretty much more picking from school and communicating with friends at school.
So the English you are speaking right now, you all got this in Australia.
In Australia,
you had no English at all.
Zero. Like I didn't even know how to say good morning, because I remember there was an occasion where I was walking to the shops, and then this person walked past me, and they were like, "How you going?" Knowing that "how you going" means they're asking how are you. And I responded because it was around the time I was studying English and I knew little bits. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to the shops." Then I just said it, you know.
And you're excited that
I was super excited that I answered in English. So when I got to know that what I answered was opposite to what
oh no, I can.
I always sit and laugh at myself.
Wow. Yes, but I must say, you've done tremendous progress, and looking from where you came from and where you are right now, even looking at your background from the refugee camp and all that which happened and where you are right now, I must say you've really had so much progress. So that's commendable. I'm
really thankful for Australian system, because when you get here as a refugee, it's different. We did get a lot of support because we had someone supporting us in translation. If we have any appointments, setting up our Centrelink systems and GPs and getting rentals. When we got here, we're staying in a hotel. My very first place I slept my foot at was in Cannington.
Oh, okay.
And I remember smelling coffee, and it was smelling disgusting.
Had you smelled coffee before?
In Carson, I've never seen coffee or tea. There was nothing like that.
You didn't have tea either in the refugee camp?
No.
Oh.
We were eating maize.
Sugar?
We had maize. We had sugar, but the kind of sugar we had, it was like a little round stuff they were being put in the plastic bags. It wasn't like a normal brown sugar.
Okay.
It was crazy. Like, lifestyle there, very different to Australian. So when I smelled coffee, I was like, "Oh, what is this?" Later on, I found out it was coffee.
Wow, that was a lot of learning, I'm sure, that happened around that time.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh yes. And living in the house, like, imagine you're coming from a small house where you cook on firewood or charcoal, and then you're being chucked in a house where there's a stove. You have no idea how to turn on the stove.
Wow.
You have no idea how to use these toilets here, because we had different type of
I know
toilets.
the ones you're talking about. Yeah. I've lived in the village too. I do understand what you're talking about. I do get it. Yes.
It was amazing. Even like coming from not only that, in the kitchen, the way we wash our dishes here, the dishwashing liquid we used to use the normal, them soap.
Yeah, yes.
That's what we used to use to wash dishes. And then here there's like this water thing, liquid.
The liquid that
you have to pour on the dishes.
Did you drink it at some point?
No. It just looked funny. It wasn't good enough. We wanted the normal soap. We used to use the normal shower soap tubs to wash dishes, because the other one was not good enough.
Wow. So at what time did you learn to use it properly?
Well, as we stayed here a bit longer, like I said, we had someone who was nurturing us on how he in Australia lifestyle is, and what sort of things they use, what things are used for. They even taught us how to turn on the stove, how to turn it off.
Wow.
Microwave, machine, all those were like
things,
it was a huge update for us coming in Australia, but I would say it was a beautiful upgrade. I'd say, because the places where we're living was much better, and we had these beautiful blankets, and at last we had beds. There was no water running on us during the night when we were sleeping. You would go to bed and sleep peacefully. It was, I'd say, when I got in Australia, is the first place I settled, and it felt like I'm at home.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
But the other places, I always felt like we're still going.
So it's I can hear the transition. I've got a couple of my areas too that I remember when I came to Australia. These things I never done them back home in Africa. For example, I've seen cheese in shops, but I had never tasted cheese ever until I stayed here. I'm like, okay, let me try it one day. I'm like, it actually tastes good. There's a lot of those things. When you're traveling to another country, another culture, and you take time to actually learn them. But yours, I think, is special. It's beautiful to hear those kind of stories. We learn how people like you have gone through life, from a refugee all the way to Australia now. So how is life for you now?
Well, I'd say being here for 17 years has done a lot for me, because there have been a lot of development happening. I'd say educational wise and living style wise, and how I understand things. In short, Australia, it's my first home.
Yeah.
The only place I felt like now I'm settled, I'm at home. There's no more moving.
Makes sense. A lot of sense.
Yeah.
Wow. Now you mentioned that you're a singer as well. How is your singing career going?
Oh, my singing career is going well. I thank God. Again, those are other opportunities that Australia bring for me. So I started doing music as a recording artist in the past 2 years, and today, like I said, I'm very much known in a song called Raha Yang or Natafuta Ruganzuri. It's one of my songs that is going really well, trending on TikTok and Facebook, everywhere. So I thank God it's on 1.4 million views at the moment.
Wow. Sitting
on.
Yeah.
So I'm really thankful, and I will never stop praising the Lord for everything that He has done for me. I feel like everything I went through, God was trying to get me to a place that I am today.
Wow. Can you give us a verse on one of your songs? Maybe that one.
Oh.
Yeah. Just a little verse.
Raha yangu mimi kumjua Bwana,
Wow.
Na safari yangu ninajua umefanya kitu, mchana usiku uniongoza nifike ukingo. That's one of the songs. I love that verse because it kind of speaks of my past life and my happiness today. Like that verse says, it's knowing God, and I have no doubt that He has protected me throughout the challenges I went through. He's the only one who protected me. If it wasn't God, I don't think I would be here today.
Wow. Thank you so much, Estell Nadine, for being on the show. We wish you all the best, especially on your singing career. We can almost agree that you've got a beautiful voice.
Thank you.
And all we can wish is to see you fly high in your music career. And please, can you support Estell Nadine? If you go check on the comment section, you will find the link to her channel. Subscribe, share, like, subscribe, whatever you can do to support our sister. So thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe and leave a comment below.